98.9 FM in Irvine. And standing by to join me is Lyndsey Parker. She's music editor at Yahoo Entertainment and host of the daily SiriusXM volume show, Volume West. And she's being honored at the 2022 She Rocks Awards coming up June 2nd. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, Janine.
As I mentioned, last time I saw you, we were at the Grammy Museum.
Yeah, 2019?
I think it was early 2020. I don't even know. It's all a blur.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
That was a cool event with Cherie Curry and Brie Darling.
Mm-hmm. From Fanny and the Runaways.
Yes.
They were performing at the Grammy Museum that night for their joint album, The Motivator.
Yeah.
And I was sitting with Mercy Fontenot, AKA Miss Mercy, who, they got a chance to meet. It was like a meeting of the rock goddesses, and I got to take photos of that. And eventually wrote a book with Mercy, and she's no longer with us, but she's with us in spirit.
You had a really special friendship with her for a while, didn't you?
Yeah, we were friends for many years before I wore her down and convinced her to write her autobiography, Permanent Damage, Memoirs of an Outrageous Girl, which came out almost exactly a year ago, June 9th, 2021. Unfortunately, about a little over a year after Mercy passed away. But it's gotten a lot of attention for her and attention in general, and that feels good.
That's amazing. How did you end up working at Yahoo and entertainment? I mean, what's your backstory?
I'll be as succinct as I can. So okay. I grew up in Los Angeles, and I'm very grateful for that. I grew up with a lot of awesome music right in my backyard. Got into music at a very young age, actually not from music in my backyard, but from my living room through just watching MTV, being very Anglophilic, very obsessed with all the bands coming on to MTV in the early days. And so I kind of always knew I wanted to be in music in some way. I did the thing of trying to learn it myself. I took guitar lessons, bass lessons, piano lessons, nothing really stuck, just hung out in the club scene. Eventually figured I would just get a job somewhere in the music business. Went to UCLA. I was a radio DJ there, actually, at KLA. Cool. And I entered to Capitol Records right out of school. Out of UCLA, I worked at a now defunct indie label called Restless Records, which had the Golden Palominos and Lori Carson and Radar Brothers, and it had a pretty illustrious catalog, but a lot of like rising indie bands, like Spain was another one. So I was doing kind of Jill of all trades. That actually started as the receptionist there, and through that world, the illustrious '90s got exposed to the world of fanzines. Fanzines were kind of like the blogs of the '90s. If kids wanted to self-publish, they did fanzines. So. Right. I decided to do one. I had access to a printer and a Xerox machine. And also, I sort of was, seeing how it was done by working in the music business and observing. So started doing the fanzine. It was called Pork Chops and Applesauce somehow. And I was very industrious. I took it around to all the coffee houses and clubs and record stores and punk rock stores on Melrose and stuff during the day. Just gave it away for free. Ended up doing some pretty big interviews. People like Weezer, the Buzzcocks, Gene Simmons, whatever. I was just a kid. My first interview was actually with Colleen Fitzpatrick from Eve's Plum, who later became Vitamin C. Yeah. So there was sort of a Brady theme going there. And anyway, through that, I sort of figured out that music journalism was what I more wanted to do than just working at a record company. And Michelle Roche, bless her heart, the publicist at Restless at the time, referred me to a company called Launch, which was spearheaded by a legendary music journalist named Dave DiMartino, who is probably best known to a lot of people as being one of the editors of Cream magazine. He succeeded Lester Bangs, actually. He's in the Cream documentary that came out a couple of years ago.
Okay.
So I basically learned everything I know from Dave. He hired me as a kid. It was my first full-time editorial job in music. And it was, the internet was still very new. It's very Wild West. It was very, that internet boom before the bubble burst. It was good times. And long story long, Yahoo purchased Launch in 2001. And I'm the only person from that old guard who's still there. I'm kind of like the music person there now, because obviously the internet changes and lots of things change. Like I said, blogs weren't even a thing then. So that's how I came to be at Yahoo. And along the way, I've, done other things, television and radio work, and just, freelance for other publications. I had a column for NME for a while, written for Elle and Rolling Stone, and, just who knew it was going to take me this way. But, there's been a lot of changes in a relatively short time in the biz, and I've just tried to roll with all the punches and take the opportunities as they have come.
And thank you for sharing that, because a lot of people get discouraged because they don't know if they should go down that path and try that thing, because they're like, well, where is that going to go? But you never know. And life is nonlinear. I mean, that's what makes it exciting.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because I saw my high school yearbook recently, and there was a page where they were asking people like what they wanted to be when they grew up or whatever. And I said I wanted to go into either journalism or radio. I don't actually remember saying that, but I did both. So it's like, I guess in a way it is kind of linear. I knew from an early age that I had the music bug and I wanted to do something. And I also was good at English class. So it was it's actually interesting that it took me so long to realize I could put writing and music together in a way. But then over the years, I started off maybe being more of a text writer because that's just what the internet was. And I also, started in print. And then, later on life, again, it took me a while. I came to things a little later in life than some, but I realized I can talk a lot. And now I get paid to talk. I can't believe that. There were people who used to make fun of me when I was a kid and like sing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you talk too much by Run DMC to me, or yakety yak, don't talk back to me.
Please.
And I'm just like, I get paid to talk now. So
yeah. So there you go.
So screw you guys. No, I'm just kidding. But it's you never know how like maybe something that you didn't realize was a skill you had when you were young or was something that could apply to the workplace does, because I didn't think I was going to be here. I guess maybe I did. Maybe my high school self.
I think it predicted it. Yeah.
I guess I just really don't even remember saying that. Weird.
It's really like a dream job because you're getting to interview all these artists and different people. And then someone will come to you and say, hey, can you host this show or co-host or be a guest? And your life just kind of unfolds in these unexpected ways.
Yeah, I try to say, you can't say yes to everything. And I suppose a good life skill that maybe I need to work on is setting the boundaries of saying sometimes like, I don't have time to do that or the mental energy to take that on. But I try to say yes to almost everything, unless it just really doesn't sound like something I'd be good at or would enjoy. But, I usually don't regret saying yes to things.
That's good. How do you stay mentally strong? I mean, we've been in a pandemic. So are there things you do for yourself?
I'm a workaholic. So, I mean, I feel almost bad saying this because there were so many people who, were understandably talking about how much they were struggling during 20 and 21. And I was too. I'm not going to say I wasn't, but a lot of people were struggling. And I kind of wasn't because I really just dove into my work because I'm fortunate, very, very fortunate. I realized that I enjoy my work. And the Zoom thing that became like kind of how we all do things now that came up in 2020 really allowed me some opportunities that I never had before, like getting to interview the Go-Go's when Belinda Carlisle is in, Thailand and one of the others is in LA, or interviewing Roger Daltrey from his country home in the countryside, or interviewing Alice Cooper. Not that I couldn't interview those people before, but it was a different kind of access where they were in their homes. They were relaxed. They were bored too. They were seeking connection and conversation. Alice Cooper had a whole hour to talk to me. He had nothing else to do. He didn't have any tour dates. So I took advantage of that and actually really enjoyed the Zoom medium. But in terms of the work-life balance thing, that was a big, buzz topic over the course of the pandemic. And I was like, I lived alone. And I was like, when I would work my two jobs, when the end of the day was over and, at like 7 p.m., 8 p.m., whatever it is, I finally was done and could close the laptop, I'd be like, well, what now? What do I do? I'm not going out to a concert or a club or many other social events that used to crowd my calendar. So I'm just going to sit home and watch TV. I'd rather be working. So I guess the reason that why I was okay was because I had gainful employment and it was employment that I really actually enjoyed. Yeah. So it was my lifeline getting to interview people and write and just kind of keep busy. I'm kind of the person that does, not everyone's like this. You do what works for you. For me, keeping busy is good. And maybe sometimes I should chill out a little bit, but when I chill out, I'm never one of these people that's going to like have a vacation where I like lie on the beach
for a week and do nothing. Right.
It sounds really good on paper, but by day 2, I'm like looking for like activities and like overscheduling. I'm just that's just how I'm wired. Yeah. So, my self-care, I mean, I kind of kick myself sometimes when I look back at the pandemic and I'm like, I had a list of movies I wanted to see, books I was going to read, hobbies I was going to learn, things around the house I was going to take care of, like home improvement stuff. I did almost none of it. None. but I was busy, and
Yeah.
it sucked. I'm not going to say I was having a good time. I'm glad that we're mostly on the other side of it. I'm happy to be social again and
Me
be
too.
able, but I kept myself busy, and there were some silver lining to it. I have my fondest memories of the time is some of the interviews I did, some of the
I was
best
going to
interviews I've
ask,
done.
I
Mhm.
wanted to ask you, are there some interviews that really stood out for you? Not that they were so, these people were awesome, but that you were a little maybe starstruck or
Oh,
just so
tons.
excited.
So many. I mean, the Go-Go's, Alice Cooper, Roger Daltrey. Um, who else would I say? Jarvis Cocker. Jarvis Cocker was a really big one for me. Duran Duran. And some of these people were people I'd interviewed before. It just felt like less regulated.
Yes.
Joan Jett.
Cool.
I mean, I was interviewing people almost every single day. I had an unprecedented level of access. I had Slash. I mean, and they all were just so relaxed. They were like at their homes. Ellie
Yeah.
Goulding didn't interview with me while holding a glass of wine the whole time, sitting on her couch. You don't get that if
No,
in normal. I
exactly.
mean, I almost am stumped to think of who I would actually have to look. Ringo Starr. Oh yeah, forgot about him. Yeah, I interviewed
Come
Ringo Starr.
on.
Yeah, and
Oh, Ringo Starr.
just him, and
Yeah.
the list just really goes on and on. I almost every day I would actually have to take a break and like look at my list of people I interviewed, but I was grateful for all of them, and some of them weren't necessarily big names, but just people I had a really excellent connection with, and some people I just wanted to interview my whole life. And yeah, it was that part of it was actually really good. There was at least one moment every day where I could like be in a really good mood, that I just like, and feel on cloud nine for an hour or two, that I just done a really cool
Right.
interview with someone that I was a big fan of. So yeah.
Well, you're privy to a conversation that most people would not have. And as you
Yeah.
said, they're just real and they're themselves.
Oh, Sean Cassidy, that was a big one. That was
And can we see these? Are these posted somewhere?
It depends. There's different mediums. Some of them were done for SiriusXM, so you can hear them on the SiriusXM app, but audio only.
Mhm.
Some of them were on video. Some of the ones I've mentioned were on video, like the Alice Cooper one was, the Roger Daltrey one was, the Ringo Starr one, which has
Yeah.
actually been nominated for won an award, and it's up for another one at the
Congrats.
so thank you. That one's video. Others were, just done as text or whatever. I have a lot of videos. I have like, a whole folder of like video and audio, because that was the other thing, is even when the person wasn't consenting to be filmed for video that would be for public consumption,
Yes.
the Zoom thing, I would be talking to them on Zoom.
Yes.
And while in the pre-pandemic times, before everyone was using Zoom, the default would have been to just be on the phone.
Right.
And it makes such a difference when you can make the eye contact,
I
look
know.
at their facial cues, laugh with them, show
Mhm.
empathy in your face if they're talking about something, serious. Can tell from their facial cues if they're open to a certain line of questioning or not open. It made all the difference. And from now on, when I do interviews, I always want to do them on Zoom, even if I'm only going to write an article. I want to
Yeah.
have,
I
that
like
kind
that.
of extra level of connection. It makes a real difference. I think that also improved my interviews for sure.
That's great. Now, She Rocks Awards. You were hosting in 2020.
I hosted it. Let's go back.
Even before
the first
that,
time
right?
I hosted it in 2019 at the House of Blues Anaheim with Christine Devine from
Yes.
Fox 11 News out here, esteemed Emmy-winning, amazing journalist, big
She's
champion
great.
of mine as well. And I'm a champion of her. And then I did it again in 2020, right before the pandemic. We're talking January 2020.
I remember.
And that was with Mindy Abair,
Yeah.
who was my co-host. And then it went virtual in last year for the obvious reasons that we just discussed. And Lizzie Hale took over duties as the virtual host, and I hosted the red carpet pre-show.
Nice.
This year, it's back to being in person. I am hosting the red carpet pre-show again, and Lizzie and Katie Darrell from Access TV, which is she is the creator and host of the Top 10 Revealed, a show I'm on Access TV. Lizzie and Katie are going to host it. I'm going to do the red carpet.
Great.
But apparently I'm getting an
You're
award.
honored.
Because if you stick around long enough. No, I mean, it was a shock to me when I got the email. It was like a 2-part email that said, are you open to hosting the red carpet again? And oh, by the way, we'd also like to honor you this year, which they honor all sorts of people. They honor performers like Meredith Brooks and Dionne Warwick and Silk and Yvette Young and Carmen Vanderberg and Sherry Chung. They do that end.
Yeah.
And past people they've had, like at the last one I was at, Gloria Gaynor and Linda Perry, but they also honor women from behind the scenes in all sorts of ways, whether they're in like the industry world, the A&R world, the marketing world, studio musician world, or in my case, the journalism world. So, yeah, it's kind of weird. I was like, I gotta give a speech, I'm going to be on the other side of the red carpet this time.
Right. It's exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. It's kind of like a little bit of a childhood dream, I guess, to like go up and be like, I'd like to thank the Academy. It's just cool to be in the company I'm in, not just the company of this year's class of 2022 She Rocks, but I mean, if this is the 10th year.
10th year.
And if you go back to all the people that have been, inducted from Exene to Shirley Manson. Orianthi, Susie Quattro, Cherie Curry was inducted last year. The Go-Go's were inducted. The Go-Go's were like such an important band to me growing up. Linda Perry, as I mentioned. I mean, the list is super long and super amazing. The B-52s, and I'm in that class, and I'm in that, those annals in some small way. It's pretty rad.
It's awesome. Yeah. So where can people find out more about you?
You can go on my Twitter. My Twitter handle is Lyndsey Parker. That's LYNDSEYPARKER. Same for Instagram. If you go to yahoo.com/music, that is where you can read all my articles and see some of my video interviews. If you want to listen to my show, it's on SiriusXM Volume, which is SiriusXM channel 106. Okay. My show is on Mondays. This is Pacific times. It's on Mondays from 4 to 6 p.m. That's the Supersize Monday episode with Davey Havoc from AFI as my co-host. And then I'm on Tuesday through Friday from 5 to 6 p.m. just by myself, usually interviewing people. And of course, talking about the music news of the day. You can also check out the Totally 80s podcast. Just look that up on wherever you listen to podcasts. I co-host that. And I have a website, but it's lynsanity.com. But I'm, like I said, I had plenty of time during the pandemic, but I haven't updated it in some time.
That's okay.
But some of my best stuffs are there. Oh yes, thank you, Janine. Yeah. So yes, the book I really want to promote is Permanent Damage: Memoirs of an Outrageous Girl. It just went into its second printing. Paperback will be coming soon. It's on Rare Bird Lit, which is a great indie publishing company that just really did this right. We had to unfortunately announce the day after Mercy passed away in July 2020 that this book was coming out. We had, and then we got it out June of last year. And it is, for people who don't know, the GTOs were a girl group masterminded and put together by Frank Zappa with a bunch of, I don't even want to call them groupies, but women who were like fixtures of the scene in the late 60s in LA. Pamela Barr probably being the most famous among them. But Mercy had a whole other story. Miss Mercy had a story that I think is as interesting as Pamela's, but super different, actually much darker, less sexually driven, more drug induced. But she was there for everything. I would say Mercy was like a Zelig. She was there for the Haight-Ashbury scene of the mid to late 60s in San Francisco, moved down to LA, was part of the Laurel Canyon scene, the Frank Zappa scene, the GTOs. Then she was very big in the punk scene of the late 70s, early 80s here, and was instrumental in helping a lot of those bands. She also was a fixture in the Memphis scene in the 60s, hanging out with Al Green and T.D. Hodges.
Amazing.
And yeah, she kind of just, as she put it in the book, went to where the energy centers were. She wasn't a musician professionally herself, but she kind of knew, she almost was like an amateur A&R person. She kind of knew where to go, where things were happening. She kind of predicted things and championed things. Never quite got the credit for it, which I hope this book has helped change. So I was real proud to be part of it. And even though sadly she died before it came out, I know that she actually signed the contract for it 8 days before she died. So she died knowing it was coming out. And I'm sure she's pretty happy about it. And I will be definitely thanking her in my speech at the She Rocks Awards for sure.
And so you were privy to all these interviews. You got to interview her for this entire book and then write the story.
Oh yeah, it's the hardest thing I've ever done. It was from soup to nuts, like 4 years out of my life, probably 2-ish years of interviewing her. Probably, I couldn't even tell you, at least 60 hours of interviews with her. She was a tough nut to crack, but we as you mentioned, we had a friendship before. So it wasn't like maybe, I know in many ways it was not a typical memoir writing process. There's lots of professional journalists who are hired to help or even ghostwrite a celebrity's memoir, and it's probably a little more structured and on a time constraint than mine was. Mine was just sort of almost like being her therapist in some ways and getting her to talk, but she really trusted me. Good. And wouldn't have done the book with anyone else. She told me that multiple times. So I think it's a real raw, honest book. I don't think it's a typical memoir. But yeah, it was a lot. And I'd love to write another book, but the idea of taking it on again is quite daunting to me at the moment. But I have some ideas in mind of some other, all women in the music business that I think I could do a good job with. So
I don't just think, I think you would. And, the fact that you had this process, I'm sure it'll be shorter the next time because now things are different. But imagine if her life had not been put out in print in the world.
I know. And I think, she died of cancer in, like I said, July 27th, 2020. And she had been off and on fighting. She beat it several times. But when we were kind of going into she initially asked me to do the book with her in 2017, shortly after her birthday, like the day after her birthday in 2017, I think she kind of knew that her number was eventually going to be up. And I think, she had resisted doing her memoir for so long. I wasn't the first person to say she should. And I think she realized it's do or die,
right.
Or get off the pot.
Right.
And so she listened to me, and, because I think she knew this was her one opportunity to get her to leave her story behind. And, we did it just in the nick of time. So yeah, I'm real grateful. Beautiful. I'm real grateful that she agreed to it and that it happened. Yeah, definitely. It would suck if her story wasn't out there.
Exactly. So thanks for bringing that to the world.
Oh, thank you for giving me a platform to talk about it.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for joining me. All your info is on the show blog, getthefunkoutshow.kuci.org. And also there's still tickets available at the sherocksawards.com.
Yeah, barely any left. It's almost sold out. So go. Right. It's going to be a really good time. The food at the ranch is great. It's a new location this year. Instead of the House of Blues Anaheim, it's at the ranch. Also, it's on NAMM Eve this year. So if you're in town and you don't really, NAMM hasn't really totally gotten underway, this is like the place to be.
Excellent. Well, I'll see you there.
I will definitely be there. Obviously, I'll look for you. Maybe we'll sit next to each other again.
That'd be great.